Failing is not the problem here. It's when we make those failures permanent, that becomes the problem. So I don't want to hear about only your successes without hearing about your failures. It's a journey forged by crucibles, battles, and messy processes. Here, we honor your pain, then we celebrate your triumph. Your truth is what's inspirational. So welcome to the Eternal Lessons Podcast.
Devin T.
What's up, bro? How you doing?
I'm good, man. We're here again, man, back on another episode. It's you and I. How you feeling?
Feeling good. Long day, of working, so it's always
Yeah.
good. It's always good,
I always
being in
wonder
charge takes its toll.
what Devin T is working on in a typical day. Like what's a typical day for you?
Well, I would liken my business structure to kind of like being a brigade commander, since we're always on the kind of military topic. There's various work streams and places that I have to worry about. I got my staff, CFO, COO. We have briefings about what's going on in our ecosystem. Our products are available in 15 states, so we have different distributors in all those different states and things that are going on there. Plus, we have the like operational side of like getting the product put together in Mexico and all of the things that go along with Mexico. Then we also have like the marketing work stream. So there's like events that we have to do, things that, we're donating product to different places. Like I've got a gala tomorrow and an art gallery tasting. So there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean it sounds busy. As you're describing that, it makes me think about this company that I'm gonna start interning with here soon. And there's a lot of veterans inside of this organization, and they've simplified it when they onboard veterans because we have this shared lexicon of how we do things in the Army. So as they were explaining things to me, they're like, hey, that's the division commander, that's the brigade commander, this is the S2. So as I heard you describe, your business, you're like, hey, I'm getting these intel updates on what's going on in the market. So you got an S2, and then you're like, we're moving these products. That's your logistics people, and then your
S4, yeah.
operational planner. So it's
No,
it's interesting that the Army has figured this out, and particularly for those who have served inside of the military, once you understand the structure and what's required for you to be successful, on the X, it's like, okay, you can go and transfer these same concepts in a civilian capacity and likely
yeah, I mean,
be
the Army is
successful.
like the biggest corporation, I mean, it's just a giant corporation once you really understand it, and the structures and are very similar. So I think that's one of the things I used to always harp on cadets when I worked at West Point. They'd be like, "Oh, this is not the real Army." I'm like, "You never been to the real Army, so you don't know." This is exactly how it works, though. There's a first guy, there's somebody in charge. There's always somebody more in charge of that person. It's all broken down into cells. Like, you can't speak to something that you've never seen yet. And obviously we do that over there to try to mimic and get them used to the structure that they're going to see out there. But then I didn't realize that we were also mimicking the structure of the corporate world, or maybe the corporate world is mimicking the Army structure.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't know which one is which, but VP, company commander, SVP, battalion commander. You know what I'm saying? Like it's really very, very similar, and that helps me to kind of understand and explain the ins and outs. And yeah, the pressure lines are very similar. Logistically, we
Yeah.
have to make sure that the stuff's on the railheads and all the lexicons. So I think there are a lot of crossover lessons and understandings from that perspective.
Yeah. No, I get that. And as I talk to, people in industry, and, we have these leadership conversations about how to make people more effective as leaders, both at the senior and emerging levels. And what I'm learning and listening to and being exposed to is that, military leadership is just different, and it's a lot more involved. And what I mean is the expectations for you to be selfless and for you to take care of people and actually care about them beyond what they can do for you, it goes far. Um, when that is taken into the civilian sector, and people are not accustomed to that. And if you can get people on board that are interested in being selfless leaders and servant leaders, very similar to how the military does it, um, there are people out there that's like, man, we'd be a lot more successful. We'll have higher retention, and people will be more comfortable, or they'd want to work here and be around here. So I'm just learning that, from a cultural aspect, there are organizations out there that, they don't care about that at all. They care about the bottom line, and it's about, we've discussed this, like, hey man, we got to make money. But I think, it's been my experience that, that is important. You don't really have a business, you can't be successful if your products aren't moving at the rate to survive. um but you also got to recognize that you're dealing with people, and you want your people to push those ideas along and be committed and devoted to the organization. So you can't forget about them, and how do you galvanize them to do that?
Yeah, but it's hard because the Army has like an overhead coverage layer that is impossible to
True,
replicate in
true.
the corporate world. You always have the heartstrings of America, patriotism, and there's this other
Hmm.
layer that draws people in. You have the respect of people when you walk outside, everybody saying thank you for your service. Like, it means something. So I think that the Army in general also is backed by the ultimate stakeholder in America, the federal government, and there's a lot more work that's done to make that organization be bolstered. When you get to the money part of, corporations, the unfortunate part is that, yeah, corporations are money making uh, endeavors, and they deliver a service and or products as a way to collect that capital. And so you have to provide value in order to be able to get the capital back. But at the end of the day, like, it's for the capital. Like, you make a better product. Yes, you hope that the product like makes the people happy, but you hope that it makes them happy so that they can buy some more of it. And sometimes people just don't want to admit or understand that it's just that simple. And I think sometimes when people find that out, it can be quite disillusioning.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's no complexity in that at all. And I agree with you. It's that simple. And I don't think people are confused at this thing. But leader developers like myself, we believe that I can't with your face, man.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, but as I was explaining, I don't think there is anything too complex about what you were explaining. Like it's like you said, it's that simple. But from a leader developer perspective, I think human capital should be elevated, over monetary capital. And I say that because one comes before the other. And I really do think that one drives the other thing. So if I can get all of these people to commit to a mission in a way that we do things, and they commit and buy into the culture of the organization and what we stand for, then I think capital is going to come from that. Whereas if you prioritize capital at the expense of human capital, then you're likely to bleed out people, individuals, teams, and you have this like machine that consistently churns, and you might be successful in the short term, but in the long term, that's just unsustainable. Like, it's just unsustainable. So finding those
Yeah.
trustworthy people that you can invest in and build this community, this culture, I think it should be the goal.
Yeah. I think there's a bit of glamorization about that though, because the truth about it is in all these high culture organizations, one of the things that they're ensuring is that the capital that they have is compensating that human capital at a level where they're not concerned about that part. So it's like you make people comfortable enough in their monetary and in their benefits and all the other things so that you can have them focus on working on and being in the culture of your business. But if you don't have enough capital to do that, then it can be increasingly difficult. And so I think that it's not even a chicken or the egg. It's like a circular, it's like a cyclical thing. You know, you have to compensate these high performers with actual capital though, for sure. Right? Like Google pays a lot of money for all the talent that they have to have a culture where that talent can progress. If they were paying everybody $60,000 a year, I don't think they would have the talent that they have because they would be able to go somewhere else. So I agree with you on one hand that the human capital can help drive the overall capital experience, but in a way, the overall capital experience is actually what gives you the ability to attract that capital, the human capital in the first place. And that takes me back to what I was saying about the Army. The Army has basically a blank check to be able to do all the things that they need to do. And so part of the way that they're able to get that capital is we run a whole school where they pay for everybody's college, they pay for everybody's meals, they pay for everybody's clothes, like, you know what I mean? And so it's a situation or an opportunity for that human capital to grow under that environment. But part of getting that level of human capital is footing the bill. So if we just
Yeah.
think about the 5 service
So
academies, that's a heavy bill in order to create an environment where the type of human capital that you want can be comfortable to come there and perform at a high level because their basic needs are all met. Food is met, where they're going to sleep is met, what they're going to wear is met, like, you know, and so I think that's the hard part about corporate America or about capitalism in that way is that you still have to worry about compensating all these people for their time when they're not going to be very pleased about coming to work.
yeah, I guess what I'm arguing is there's this snowball effect that's happening from the very beginning, and it starts with human capital. That I think that's my argument is, if you and I were to ask the question, when you're starting a business, what is the most important thing? If you ask me that question, I would say human capital. I would say
Yeah, and
the
I would
person.
disagree.
Right, right. So that this is where we disagree. You would say, and I understand what your argument is. I totally understand it, and I slightly agree with most of it.
Like if I
But the
hired
reason
you
I'm
today
arguing that
to come and
human
work
capital,
at my company, but I'm not
yeah,
giving you enough capital for you to pay for
that's not what we're talking
your
about.
family.
You're talking about something different. You're talking about something different.
Okay.
I
Okay, what
said,
am I saying?
okay, I said at the very start, you've already moved beyond the start. Go back to the start. Okay, so what's the most important thing at the start of a business? Is it monetary capital or human capital? I argue that it's human capital,
Yeah, and I
period.
know. And I'm arguing back to you
That's it.
that monetary capital is extremely important because you can't run a business without the capital that's required to move the
Got it.
things. Like, and what I'm saying is, I understand what you're saying from a theoretical leadership standpoint. And I'm not saying that human capital is not important. I'm just saying that at the baseline of business, if we look up the definition of business, like if they put that on the screen right now, it is a monetary capital endeavor, and the human capital is a way that you can infuse that into your company to like do that practice better. It's like football. It's like you need elite players to play elite football, right? But like you also need a ball and you need like the lights and the grass, like, you know what I'm saying? So that's all I'm saying is the monetary capital ends up being like the stadium of which these players are playing in. And you can put together a team, but if you don't have the equipment and the things that they need to be able to play the game effectively, then you just have a group of people who have a desire to do something, but they don't have much that they can do.
Yeah, but you're missing my point still yet. I'm talking about, okay, so if I say to you Tesla, or if I say to most people Tesla,
Hmm.
they don't think multi or trillion dollar, that's not what they think. They think Elon Musk, right?
Right, but we know
That's
Elon
what they
couldn't do it
generally think.
by himself.
I get that, but he is the start. So any start of a business, the most important aspect of that business is human. When investors are looking to give you money, they're looking at the human, right? And then they're looking at everything else. Like the human matters. And then because you can have this great idea, but if the human ain't right, Devin, then I don't think an investor is gonna throw money at you because they don't believe that the human has what it takes to move this thing along. So that's what I am
Sure.
arguing. I think human capital is most important, and it doesn't change. We allow it to change as money starts to come in. We start thinking that, okay, we're making a lot of money. This is no. But if we continue to look for human cat, like if we continue to do that, then the business will thrive. That's all I'm saying. So it's I get what you're saying, but we can't do any of this without money.
It's tough. It's
But what
tough.
but what yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know so many amazing people who, from a human capital perspective that are fantastic. But, like, I just think that ultimately people are kidding themselves sometimes if they don't understand that, like, at even the human capital idea is that you trust this person. Like, I was able to raise money because people are like, okay, this guy's like a dog with a bone. Like, he's gonna, like, I trust that he's gonna sit here and do it. Right. And, like, do the thing. But I also had to explain myself very clearly about what it is that I would be doing and how that's going to get everybody their money back. So I would just say they're equal, in my opinion. Like, that's like my net is that human capital is, of course, important.
Yeah.
It's like, let's say it like this. The human capital is like the driver. Like, I'm a Formula One guy. The human capital is like the driver, but the monetary capital is like the car. So you need both a great driver and an excellent car in order to win the race. That's a fact, right? The driver alone, like, you may have confidence that they can do good with a decent car or like with a better car, but with a really nice car and a really good driver, they're definitely going to go far. But I think that too many people run into business in particular and are like, I'm a really good person and I'm a really great person with great intentions and all this other stuff, but they don't know anything about the race itself or the car, as I'm saying. And that's where a lot of businesses go to fail. And so that's just what I'm saying is that I think it's true that you need good leadership and you need human capital that's worked, but it's only part of the equation. And yeah, that's why I think a lot of people rush off to do businesses and they think I'm a good person, I'm a smart, capable person, I have an idea, I'm not going to quit. But when this stuff gets hard and people, it really comes down to it, it's a lot deeper than that. It ends up just being about like the nitty gritty of it all.
Yeah. No, I could totally I mean, when if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and if you're focused on the survival piece, the physiological and then the safety, if you're down in those areas, then I can understand why, a business owner would focus, it becomes cutthroat at that point. It's a survival thing. Like, this is about money. Like, I don't have time for all these other things that what you would say is this philosophical, romanticized thing about human capital or leadership. Um, However, I think like that's when we should press even harder on identifying human capital because I think the human is going to solve the problem, right? The human is going to solve the problem, and that's what you're paying for, really. You're paying you're identifying a person or people that have what it takes when it gets hard to persevere, but not only persevere, to solve complex problems. Like they're going to figure it out. And if you have a history, a pattern of excellence, then that's kind of what people are looking for, right? That's what they're going to look for. Like, well, what does this guy's resume look like? And I got to bet on that. I got to bet that he has been through or she has been through these things, and their ideas are great, and they'll figure it out on the go. And that's what they're betting on. That's how I see it. You've been doing this a lot longer than me. You've
Yeah, I
also
mean,
raised more money than me, but I'm just
yeah, I mean,
letting you know,
I'm
like,
not
if you know,
discounting the, yeah, I I definitely believe that people, obviously my resume and my experience is part of the reason why people are comfortable believing me about what I'm telling them. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that no matter what, though, even through all of that, like my responsibility and my fiduciary duty is still to deliver value from the system that's happening. And part of the ability to deliver value ends up being a lot about the capital, human capital, but also monetary capital that you have in order to do the problem set. And so I guess I'm always trying to make sure that when we're having these conversations that equipping people with the thing that they need to know that is up ahead. It's like, yeah, you need a great team, and that team needs to get paid. So that's the thing, right? If you have $500,000 to spend on people, and you feel like you want to hire 10 people at $50,000, that's a difference than if you're gonna hire 3 people at $150,000. You know, so what I'm saying is like, what you're saying is true, and in turn, the system has a way that it has already developed to reward and incentivize that human capital coming to your business. And mostly that involves a monetary component that is very, very real. It's very real. Like if I wanted to come and have you, Shawn, come and work for us in our business, you have a reality, a monetary reality that comes along with your human capital, right? And I've
sure,
got to
yeah,
make sure that those needs are met for you so that you can come and lend your human capital to our business. That's all I'm saying. Like, I know for a fact that like most people are not going to work for less than what they find their value to be, or for, free for extended periods of time. It's tough. And
yeah,
that's very real. And so, yeah, at the start of a startup, you try to give people equity and try to compensate them that way. But I'm telling you, that lasts for about a year. After about a year, everybody's economic reality becomes like, hey, I could go to Meta and get paid like a lot of money to do this. And I thought this idea was really cool, but if they're going to pay me $350,000 and you're telling me that I can get paid $50,000 and hopefully one day we can make money, most people have an economic reality that they can't do that. They can't do it. You know what I'm saying? And
right,
I
right,
think the things like the
right,
army, people will put up with the different capital because food's getting taken care of and lodging's getting taken care of, and you get benefits in the end and you get retirement. So there's a total compensation package that people can deal with, and it's coming from a source that's basically guaranteed. In the startup world, it's not guaranteed. No matter how great this human capital is, it's just not guaranteed. And people have to weigh against that reality. And that makes human capital a very hard thing to do as you get to rolling.
yeah. I I, I want to take I want to take some time here and define human capital, because we're using it, and I don't know if we agree on what this term means. But I view human capital as human value, like the value that a person maintains or they have. Like it's almost like, um if it were money, if it were true monetary capital, it's like this person, their value is worth this much based on their experiences, how they think, how they
Absolutely.
solve problems. So I look at it as a value thing. Is that what you think as well?
Yeah. I think the same thing. And what I'm saying is in our system, that human capital of value that the person's going to bring is already pre-tied to a monetary value that they expect for the human capital that they have. I'm saying that they're tied together inextricably. You can't pull them apart is what I'm saying. So I agree that human capital is the value that somebody brings to an organization in general. And I'm also saying that people know their value and want something for that value.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that makes sense. It's certainly challenging, if you're a business owner to find the kind of help or talent or human capital that you need, um, at the right price tag, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
to bring them on board, and they believe in this thing with you. It's like, hey, I can only pay you 75 grand this year. But trust me, this thing's gonna be booming. Give me like 2 years, it's gonna be booming. I just need you to ride with me. And they're like, well, I need some
But
ride
even
with
then,
me
you got to
money,
tell them like, okay, so in 2 years, we're going to move you from 75 to 150 to 200. Like, you got to put a monetary value
Yeah,
on that for most human capital, because they feel like I'm bringing you $1 million worth of value and somebody else is going to pay $350,000 for my $1 million worth of value. And you're offering me $75,000. So that is 20% of the value that my value could get in the market. And I'm
yeah,
saying that it's very difficult in the corporate capitalist structure to make that argument. You essentially can only make that argument by saying, I'm going to trade you something that's going to make up the delta at some point, So start out at
yeah.
20%
I
of the
mean, if if
salary
if
that you
there
could get. And at some point,
if
what we're
there's a true
working on
delta
is going
though.
to deliver you. What do you say?
Well, I know that probably took you off. If there's a true delta, right? So, I think in this space of leadership, money doesn't drive everyone. Money, but sometimes I see like leaders want to make it about money because, they think about money, and that's why they do what they do. But everyone has different motives.
Sure.
And it's not always just money. It could also be freedom of maneuver or flexibility. It could be autonomy. It could be the kind of work, the purposeful work that they're doing. But figuring out what that is for the type of help or talent, human capital that you need, I think is key. But it's not always money. You
Sure.
know what I mean? There are other things you could pay people with.
Yeah. Like what?
Experience or exposure. Um, you can pay them with flexibility. Like maybe they don't want to work, the 9 to 5, the traditional 9 to 5, and maybe they want, Wednesdays off, and they want to work in an organization that's not gonna, give them a difficult time for wanting to spend Wednesdays with their kids and their family. So that's something you can offer.
But that's more of an explanation, right? But that's more of an explanation for how and why they are willing to take this monetary situation at that rate. Like, let's think about it this way. If they wanted Wednesdays off, that means they're working 4 days a week, right? So maybe that's the difference between working a 40-hour work week and working a 32-hour work week. So if all things held the same, if you were making a certain amount per hour, if we like broke this down, they're essentially saying, okay, well, I'm only working 32 hours, so I'll take 75,000 for my 32 hours versus taking 90 for my 40 hours. You know, that's all I'm saying. It's just that, ultimately, even when we start to break it down like that, it's like, well, yeah, that just explains why they're willing to take this undervalue or this under market value compensation. But it still ends up in the same kind of conversation about, um, like, people are not going to work for free. I guess that's just what I'm saying. And they will allow, there's different benefit packages that you can put together that will allow someone to make sense of, why they're doing what they're doing. But I think that that's an important thing to understand. And you want the people the human capital that want the value that you're bringing, I guess is what I'm saying. So it's a lot about matching the value that people are looking for and the monetary value or the overall compensation structure that you can deliver. The law firms on paper, the lawyers make a ton of money at these big firms. But in reality, you work like 18 to 20 hours a day and are on call for like 6 or 7 days a week. So if we broke down the amount of hours that you're expected to work in an actual monetary way, it's like $30 an hour. And so I always challenge people, like, would you really work a job 18 hours a day for $30 an hour? Most people wouldn't. But if you say, hey, I'm going to pay you $400,000 this year, people are like, oh, that's lit. Well, it's lit till you get there for a lot of times,
Yeah.
but
No.
for some
Yeah,
people,
you're right.
they're cool with that, and
Yeah.
I think it's, that's just one of the things that I've learned as I've gone along. That's very different from when I was in the Army. It's like, I was willing to be on deployment and just like, I used to say this in my law firm interviews. I said that, in my former career, I used to wake up and go to sleep next to my coworkers, and they were like, "You're hired," because you're about to sleep and wake up next to your coworkers now. So that's something that resonated with them. Like, okay, yeah, great. So you get the vibes. You're never going to be off work, son. You're never going to be off work.
Yeah.
So we're glad that you have an experience that you have shown that you're okay with never being off work. So you're hired, and it wasn't until I got deeper into that I understood it. And so I don't know, though, that people would want to work all day, every day doing the law firm stuff for, a lesser amount. And that's what I'm saying, is that I think the market starts to set these things of how the human capital will accept the workload or the work structure that you're asking from them.
Yeah. No, I get it. So let's talk about how someone understands what their value is. Like, how does someone go about truly understanding what their value is? How do you do it?
I'm a big believer in that how do I do it? As I've gotten older and had a lot of jobs and different things, I've started to notice what the market value, or let's say, what the market compensation to time structure is. And just like you were saying, like, maybe you want Wednesdays off, maybe you want, this, that, and the third. And these income brackets are already set up in a system that will communicate to you how much you have to do for this amount of money in reality. So my belief is that if a job is paying you more than $250,000, they are communicating to you that this is a lifestyle job. That's what I call it, a lifestyle job. So if we call you, you better pick up the phone. That's what we're telling you, right? I can't really think of too many jobs that pay $350,000 where the expectation is not that with that phone rings, you better pick it up. Now, if you're in the 190,000 to 250, this is all American, like generally, and maybe this is like New York, but I think this is just generally. If you're in the 180 to 250 range, it's not quite that bad, but it is definitely a 6-day-a-week expectation. Like, you should not have the idea set that Saturday is an off day for you. We're something that we need you to do in this organization, because that's why we're paying you this extra amount of money for that. Now, if you're between like 140 and 180, generally I would say that that's more like consultants get paid that. They work 4 days or 5 days a week, but they have to travel. So it's like, you got to be away from your family. You got to be on the project site. You got to do all these different things. So we're going to compensate you a little bit more for this kind of 9 to 5 weekday role, but that's the extra trade that you're giving. If you're between like 100 and 140, you can probably expect that to be a pretty clean, like 9 to 5 job, like Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, do the things that we need you to do. And that's it. And when you're below 100,000, it's usually a like show up job. Like, you need to come to this place and stand at this thing and be here doing this from this time to this time. and then you can go. And so I think that in some ways the market sets that. Now, how does someone choose that value for themselves? I think that there is an intrinsic understanding of the level that you're trying to be at. So if you're trying to be like in a lifestyle job, if it's really important for you, you want to be a CEO, you want to be, the main driver in this business, then you are accepting that you should probably get paid more, and you're going to be sitting there doing that all the time. And I think so. I think it's personal preference. For me, I
Yeah.
decided I didn't want to work at that level actually once I went to do it. But I thought being an entrepreneur would be a little bit different, but it's back to the same thing. It's definitely a lifestyle job, but it's a lifestyle job for less.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be though, and I mean we could get into that
It
and my
doesn't have to
thoughts on
be.
how it doesn't have to be. But yeah, I really like what you said there with the whole lifestyle job and how you broke that down. Like that makes a lot of sense. I don't think the question was answered though, and
Or how
while
do you determine
you
your
because
value?
yeah, yeah, and I'm gonna take a stab I didn't know before I asked the question. Like I literally was, looking to unpack this with you in real time to figure it out, or how would we tell
Hmm.
other people like, hey, when you look at your value or what your worth is, you got to think about these things. So as you were talking, I wrote three things down here in my book. I'm like,
Okay.
okay, well, I like Devin's whole lifestyle pitch and how he's looking at it, and it inspired these three things as I wrote them, you know, and I said, yeah, this is probably what I do as I understand my value is the three things are credentials. So I look at my credentials. I look at my body of work, and body of work being the things that I've done, like the experiences, the places I've been, and what I've produced. And then the last thing, and this is more so your work ethic or your will, but it's the potential that you have, like your potential to grow inside of this space. So those three things to me have to be communicated in a way to have someone believe that you have value that deserves a certain type of compensation or that makes you worth the investment.
Um, I think that I understand what you're saying, but I guess what I'm saying back is that that's how you are thinking about what jobs or what things that you want to go after. I think the market has already set some of these things for you. So let me explain. Okay. So when you say credentials, let's say, so for me, like, okay, you have a JD. So then you are eligible for jobs that are of like an associate attorney, right? Like as an entry level of like, right. So you had to get this credential, pass the bar in order for you to come into this level of job. Okay. That's true. Then the second thing you said was your body of work, right? So let's say if you're a mid-career attorney, you've already done some lawyering, you're like, okay, you should hire me as a fifth-year associate at your firm. I did all this other stuff at my firm for 4 years. It's amazing, like blah, 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 blah. I have this work ethic and this is my potential. I can come into your firm and help you do these deals and do it efficiently. Those are the things that you are using as the support for why you can be effective in the role that the firm has made. The firm set, though, that they need fifth-year associates with this credentials and this body of work and this potential in order for them to pay that person $500,000. You see what I'm saying? But they've already decided that they want to pay $500,000 for a person with this stuff. You don't get to walk into the firm and say like, I'm a first year associate, but I'm lit. So you should pay me 500 grand instead of 250. I don't believe that there's much of it doesn't really quite work like that is what I'm saying, you
Yeah.
know? So
I
I
don't,
do think that the
yeah, I don't,
credentials, the body of work and the potential allow people to understand what kind of work and things that they're trying to do. Like, you could maybe go right now and go in an interview for a CEO of a company, right? Like a CEO position. You say, hey, I've led teams at this level, blah, 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 whatever. But they had an opening for that position and they wanted to fill it with someone who had the things that you are doing. So I think someone's value is about how they're thinking about what types of roles and jobs and things that they would be like eligible for. But I'm not sure that the market is a free enough market where you get to just say like, I think I'm worth this.
Uh,
You see
I
what I'm
see what you're
saying?
saying. I guess we're tackling this. Yeah, I do. But I think we're tackling this whole thing differently.
Okay.
I'm looking solely at the individual making their own decision and determination what their value is, right? And I think you need to know that so that when you're walking into a room or you're having a conversation with someone, you at least know that, I've come up with my own idea of what my value is, or I understand what this looks like. Um, and I'm not talking, so let's take you for instance, because both you and I are very similar in this. Like we don't have these conventional paths, right? You don't have a conventional path at all. You've done many, you're just so eclectic, many different things. I am the same way in a military capacity. Like the things that I've done is unlike what most of my peers have done. So, and I've pursued that very like you because we weren't necessarily looking for depth in the expertise, but it was like, we wanted the exposure and the learning. And when we felt like we had enough of that, it was time to pivot and grow in other areas. We're just, you know, hungry for growth at the next thing. Um, or we have
Mm-hmm.
ADHD, whichever one you want to say. But we are hungry to grow
Yeah,
in
probably
just
both.
different areas. So so when I look at like credentials, and just to take you for an example, like, I mean, you're a military officer, you've done great things in the military, um, and then you pivot, you go get your JD, you open a business while you're doing your JD, you're doing some Airbnb stuff, and then, you pivot from there, you do some other stuff, now you're running a different brand, you know. So I think your credentials, right, speaks to your capabilities, like what you're able to do inside of that job, because those are your credentials,
Mm-hmm.
all of those, and then your body of work helps, explain things, and then the potential, that piece, I think is like it's like a three-legged stool. I know we've talked about three-legged stools before, but this potential piece is its own thing, right? And it can help an investor or an organization understand if this investment or if this hire is worth it. Like, because I want to bring someone in that has the credentials and capabilities, in that body of work, but ultimately they got to have potential. They got to have like growth potential, because I'm bringing you in the way you are, but I expect you to be 10 times better than the way you are in a year.
Yeah. I think we should separate it for a second though. I think entrepreneurship versus kind of the free market jobs conversation is different. Um, I agree with you about,
Okay.
so coming back to the value piece. Okay. So I agree with you in these ways. Certainly when I come to someone and I talk to them about my experiences, I'm able to take my credentials, whether it's degrees or whatever, schools or whatever it is, and my body of work and my potential or my future or whatever, and put all of these things together as an explanation for why I'm certainly going to get this project that we're working on done, and to inspire investor confidence. That's what I always tell people I help fundraise. You got to inspire investor confidence, right? That's what we're doing.
Hmm.
It's hard to think about that as value though, because it's really kind of a separate idea. What you're doing is you are gaining trust and rapport. Trust and rapport, I think, are part of the things that you're talking about in credibility, body of work, and potential. This is like why I should be like listening to you tell me about the thing. But value, from my perspective, has a more solid market idea than that, because if I wanted to transition right now to be a CEO at a company other than my own company, like transitioning from being the CEO of my company into, like, let's say, entrepreneurship through acquisition is very popular right now. So let's just say I want to go take over a tire factory. Well, the tire factory people are going to want to talk to me about, like, all right, well, we got this role, $600,000, whatever, but we want to see that you led a P&L, a profit and loss statement. We want to see that you managed this business of this much money and made it successful at this level of growth and blah, 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 blah. And that's what we want to pay someone $600,000 for and to do, you know? So when determining your own value, again, I think what we're saying, if on the open market, is to say you should be assessing your credentials, your body of work, and the potential that you believe that you have, and how you can communicate that to the market to why they should give you what you're looking for. From an investment standpoint and entrepreneurship, I think it's a little bit different, because what you're doing is it's not about value per se, because the money that you're taking from somebody as an investment is not for you. It's for the business though, right? And the trust and rapport that you're gaining is the trust and rapport that you're going to do with your fiduciary duty, the right thing with their money. So I raised $2 million, but I didn't get to keep that money, right? I had to take that money, build brands, build infrastructure, supply chains, bookkeepers, CFOs, COOs, right? So the money is not for me. So I can't really be thought of as like my value, right? It's trust and rapport for how I'm going to take the cash and make it into the thing that I said. And you can trust me because I'm a West Point grad. You can trust me because, like, blah, 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 blah. And so a lot of the times when I was, raising money, that's how I told the story. Listen, I'm an obsessive person. I've never, ever, I've lost many a battle, but I've never lost a war. Let me tell you about it. I've limped through Ranger School on my third time with a broken ankle. I'll never quit. So if you give me your money, I'm telling you that I'm not quitting until we sell this brand for this amount of money, at least. So that's how I sold the situation. Like, that's what we're doing. I'm going to keep going
Yeah, you sold
until,
you sold your value. You
right.
sold your
But
value.
that's
That's
right.
what
No,
I'm arguing.
yeah,
That's
no,
what I'm
but
saying.
see, it's different, because what I'm saying is not even the value that I'm selling. I'm selling the commitment and the trust and rapport, right? I still had to, no, that's what I'm saying. I had to sell you the value of the brand. I have to say, listen, what we're working on, when we build it up, we can sell it for $50 million, let's just say, right? That's the value that the people are after. Now, why you can believe me that I'm going to shepherd this from $0 to $50 million is because of these things, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying? The difference? Because the money, again, is not for me. It's to support
I don't agree with
the
you.
ushering.
I don't agree with you.
Okay.
I don't agree with you.
I
And
get you.
this could be one of those, Devin, Shawn, like, hey, this we agree to disagree, whatever. But I look at this same way as, like, investing in a stock market, a publicly traded company. Um, like, you invest your money, like, let's take Apple for an example. If they're $192 a share, they're probably a lot more than that, but I'm going to invest my money. I'm going to put $500,000 into Apple and buy however many shares. Um, I believe in Apple, but what I'm really looking at before I make that decision is I'm looking at the leadership. I'm looking at the people.
Sometimes.
right? No, all the time. I mean, you'd be crazy not to, because you're
We
looking
didn't know
at
Tim Cook was still going to be like a decent after Steve Jobs. I mean, they definitely took a dip after Steve Jobs died. Tim Cook comes in.
100%.
Who knows if it's going to be a visionary, blah,
Why
blah,
did
blah, blah.
Here's the thing. Why would the value of a company dip when a person dies off? That goes back to what I'm saying. It's the value
But I'm
of
saying that
the human
it might have gone
capital.
from 192 to 160, but it didn't go from 192 to $10. That's what I'm saying. You know what I
Doesn't
mean?
matter, but
I get what you're
even a
saying.
slight dip proves the point.
I don't know that it proves the point, but it does say that leadership matters, and I think that's true.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Because
But
hey,
again, but
I'm
if
gonna
Tim
invest
Cook
in
got fired
Malamia.
today,
You know why I'm gonna invest in Malamia? Huh? You want to know why I'm investing in Malamia? Because
it's beautiful.
Devin T is running that. That's why I'm gonna
That's true.
invest in it.
And I have some, and what I would say is I have some investors who that is certainly the underpinning of like why they parked money with us in our business. But I
Heck
have other
yeah.
people who, certainly just believed in the market, believed in the value of the brand, believe that it itself can be the thing that I'm saying that it can be. So I think, that's the important thing is that, people are different, do we think that Tesla dies off if Elon dies? I don't know. Or when Elon dies, I don't know. If the cars are still on the road everywhere and the humanoid robots are still rocking around, whoever Elon's successor is probably going to, be able to recover that stock as long as the underlying asset is working well. Certainly people will invest in Apple because they have an iPhone and because everybody that they know has an iPhone. And they're like, why would you bet against everybody having an iPhone? You know? And it was probably the same way when BlackBerry was lit. You know what I mean? And so I think that it's both and,
Yeah.
or it can be. But back to the question of value, um, yeah, like how do you know your value? I would just say that how do you know your value? It also has to do with what you want. Like you were saying earlier, sometimes people want to be off Wednesdays. So like, how does like your desire affect the idea of value? You know, like I certainly have, as I was explaining earlier about the different brackets and what they expect. Now that I'm a bit older and about to get married, about to have a family, I'm not that interested in the lifestyle jobs. I can just tell you, I'm cooling.
Yeah.
It's all
I'm
right.
with you.
Like
Yeah.
I don't want to give up a weekend for your money. I don't want to. I want to go to my kid's soccer game. I want to be there at the thing. And so my value
Yeah.
of what I can get on the open market is probably much higher than what I'm willing to take because now that I understand what people expect for these high value, high compensation dollars or whatever, I don't want to do that. I just don't want to because it's not necessary. So that's why I guess I'm arguing back that the value is kind of complex because I'm probably worth $600,000 of salary. I'll definitely run your stuff and do all of that, but I don't really want to do that like that. I don't want a work phone in that way. I don't want that buzzing off the hook, bothering me about, whatever the thing is. And so that's the real question, I think, is not just do you know your value? How do you assess your value and your desires and find a sweet spot for those things that you can be fulfilled in your life, you know? And I feel like that's the
Yeah.
thing for veterans sometimes when they're transitioning is like, if you want to work a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, that might be capped out at like 200 grand. But like, that's the situation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So do you want
Yeah.
Monday through Friday with 200 grand or do you want more money? But, but people always want, sometimes they want more money, but they want to do like the same amount of work. And it's just very difficult to find that.
Yeah. So I think we're talking about the same thing, but we're saying it differently. I don't agree that to understand your value is to know what you want. Um, I see those as two separate things. So your value is made up of those three things, right? That I pointed out. Um, and once you understand what your value is, the next step is how do you liquidate it? How do you liquidate your value? And then where's the liquid going, right? So you could liquidate your value and say, hey, I want 90% of my value to receive a compensation of this, of money. And 10% is time, family, whatever. Whereas you and I, we're both in the same boat. The way that we've liquidated our value at this point in our lives, it's, hey, I'm okay putting 60%, 70% here, but I want 30 to be here with our family and with the kids and doing other things, because I think my value needs to be elsewhere. You know what I mean? It's how you're liquidating that value.
I like that. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's where I'm at
Mm-hmm.
with this whole value conversation, dude. Look? I don't know if I showed the people. You remember in our
Oh,
first episode,
okay.
I talked about us having a
Yeah, reaching in
box
the
with
box.
topics in it. Dude, I have this box, the Eternal Lessons show box, and it has some topics in here. And now what we're gonna do, Devin, is we're gonna try it out tonight on us before we bring it out on our guest next. But essentially,
Let's
like,
do it.
we'll have this conversation, and that when there's a transition point, I'll open the box and I'll ask the guest one of these questions. Now, in this box, there's like current events, things that's happening in the world that we might talk about. And we're not prepared.
What a crazy.
By the way, for
Woo!
everyone that's listening, we didn't prepare for this. There's just topics. The team put the topics in the box.
Right.
So they're current
Yeah, I
events.
don't know.
It's vulnerable questions about leadership and stuff like that. But it could be anything, man.
I sit back for this.
You ready? Okay.
I'm getting
I'm just gonna
comfortable.
take
I'm
one,
like,
man.
all
I got
right.
it. I got
Oh
it.
boy.
Okay. All right, we got it. All right, let's see what this one says. All right. All
What's
right.
up? What we got?
What you're listen, we have the potential to go hours on this one. Oh my goodness. Hey, you gotta answer first. I'm not going first
What's
on
up?
this one. So it says, what fear influences your leadership more than you'd like to admit?
Uh,
Uh,
Let me think about it for a second. What fear influenced your life?
Yeah. I mean, I'm over here thinking about it too, because I think I gotta answer this thing too. Um,
I would say like this. I would say I have always had a balance in my career. I think sometimes people can meet me and think that, I'm really self-aware and I really want what I want. And I think that, most people are being coy if they're not being a little bit selfish about their career and their life. And I think the fear that affects my leadership most is that I'm always trying to balance the kind of benevolent leader situation with just being a ripe hardo. I can be like a real hardo. When I look back at my lieutenant days, I was like really, I don't want to say mean, but I was kind of an asshole to those guys. Like, if I can be honest
yeah.
with you. And I think as I get older, I'm always like trying not to be like this hardo leader that is like alienating. So I'm always trying to push my people for excellence without being like overly, you know, hardcore. So as we talked about our 173rd days, it's like there's this really thin line be trying to push the culture of performance versus being like an alienating leader. And so I think that's the fear for me, is always like I don't ever want to be seen as like this non-empathetic leader, because I think I am empathetic, but I just really want to perform and want us all to succeed at what we're doing. And so sometimes I am a softie when I should be being much harder because I'm concerned with whether or not my people are going to think that I'm not being empathetic. Does that make sense?
Kinda. So you fear being perceived as if you're not empathetic?
Yeah, like they say the carrot and the stick, or like how they used to call some leaders like Candyman, you know, like sometimes like I'm an over candy man for fear of like being thought of as like the stick man. So what I'm saying is that a fear of mine is not being is having a bias towards performance or towards whatever we're like the mission. They say mission min me. I'll give you back another great one. Mission min me is definitely how I was raised, right? So I have to be very careful not to always choose the mission over the men. Sometimes I have to be empathetic of like, yo, I can't just have these guys out here like this. You know what I mean? And so it's something that's always in the back of my head of like, all right, I've probably been driving everybody pretty hard. Like, what's something that I can do to like, soften this edge a little bit? You know what I mean? And so I think that's a fear of mine of like being a leader that people don't feel like is thinking about them, because I'm so obsessed with trying to make sure that we're doing what we're doing. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Okay. So now it's starting to click. I don't know if you're saying this right though. I don't know if you're saying this right from my
What's the right way to
just
say it? I
listening
don't know
to
how
it.
to say it.
Uh, it sounds like
And
you're
I don't know how to write.
afraid. Yeah, it sounds like you're afraid for people to learn that you care more about the mission than them.
No, I'll just tell them that. Like that's that's not the fear. We're here for the thing. Like I brought you on the team so we can win the basketball game. Like, come on. My fear is that let me think about it. I guess so. Not really like that way. I don't know how to explain it. Like the
That's
question
what you
was, what
said.
is your fear that affects your leadership most? Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So
Like
that's it.
if I was a
The fear
basketball
is that.
coach, it's like I really care about everybody's development, but I also care about everybody's development because like that's what helps win basketball games is develop players, So like it's not that I don't care about your development as an individual. I do care about your development, but I care about your development inside of the context that a better developed, more disciplined player helps us win the game. And that's what we're doing. So I
Yeah.
think and that sounds, because to me, it is empathetic. It's all a part of it. Like it's still about your development, but I feel like people don't take it that way sometimes. They're like, all you care about is winning. You don't really care about me. It's like, no, that's not true. But like, we definitely care about winning. I mean, yeah, like definitely, and I think that there needs to be more space for the coexistence of those things. And I think that probably one of the reasons why is because as the leader, I often feel so much pressure from whoever I have to answer to about our ability to perform. Same thing in the business sense for me right now. I have lots of investors that I owe a duty to make sure that I deliver on what we're doing, and that is what everybody wants to know from me. That's what they want to know in the quarterly reports. That's what no one's ever asking me like, hey, Devin, how's your mental health? Are you okay? They're not asking that. They're like, yo, bro. So like,
Yeah.
what's going on with the brand? Like, have we opened new stores? Like, how close are we to getting $50 million? Like, what's going on? Right. No one's asking Devin, like, yo, are you okay? Like, you know what I'm saying? Do you want to quit sometimes? Like, no one's asking me that. They're like, you better not quit before we get our money. And so I think it's like trying to balance that experience is happening to me, that I'm under such a microscope to perform while I'm trying to lead people. It's like, dang, I really need this guy to like do his job. but I also have to try to like make it like smooth and like soft and like, hey, bro, like, you doing okay? Like, yeah, man, and so I think I don't know if that's like a fear, but that's like my leadership struggle. I find is that I'm having to be very soft with everybody, and I don't ever feel like anybody's ever being very soft with me.
Okay. I think we got to think on this one, Devin. I'm not satisfied with your response. I get
What's your response, bro?
certainly
You taking 6 minutes to tell me that I'm not explaining something correctly? Like shit. What's your answer?
I'll tell you. So here's the first thing. I'll say this. This is how, when I read the question, I'm like, man, that's a profound question.
It is.
And here's how I'm thinking about it. This is how I'm thinking about it. What are you deeply afraid of personally? Like, what is your fear personally that manifests itself in a defense mechanism? Either you're hiding it or you're compensating for it as a leader. Like, it shows up. That fear, because you have it and it's always in your heart, is showing up in some way in how you're leading. And it's hard to admit. That's the end of the question. And it's just difficult to admit. So they slid that in there. So I think context matters here for me. I grew up, I didn't have much. I spoke Ebonics, and, I just, I wasn't a confident from an education standpoint. I wasn't very educated coming from where I came from. So as I started to do this climb, my biggest fear, and I'll tell you, this is my biggest fear, was being found out that I had a poor foundation, a poor education, upbringing, and I had a poor foundation, and I was compensating for it all. That was that always played. So it created this imposter syndrome in me. And with that fear, it forced me to show up with a level of confidence that was like not real. It wasn't necessarily a real confidence. It was like this pretend confidence and this projection in order to survive. So what I ended up doing from a leader standpoint, which is the part that's hard to admit, is I drove my teams way harder, and I made them think that it was easy for me. So I always made things appear easier than they actually were, even though that I knew it was hard for me. So I'd be up late at night working really hard or getting little sleep, and I wouldn't necessarily like project or share. It was more like, what are you guys doing? Like, you guys don't know this? Like, let's go. You could do more. And I wasn't empathetic to other people's challenges and struggles. It was almost like I was Superman, but I wasn't Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So that had
Sure.
played out in how I led. You see what I'm saying? So I would say that's how I would answer the question. From a fear standpoint that showed up in my leadership over time.
I get that. Yeah. And maybe what I'm saying is that like, it's kind of a similar situation for me, but a little bit different. And what I'm basically saying is that I feel like in my life, in my experience, whenever I have lost, whether it's a battle, whether it's like, failed Ranger school or, had to do Army mentorship, whatever, I have always felt that the scrutiny that I was under for not delivering at the highest level of performance that exists has been so amazingly ruthless that I have had to protect
Yeah.
myself from being ruthless to everyone else. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm saying like, does that make sense? So even when I'm saying about the mission, I'm like, bro, dude, I still have people who talk to me about times that I was not performing at like the A+ level from 10 years ago. I'm like, are you shitting me? 10 years ago, we were having a conversation recently. You're like, oh, bro, oh my gosh. Like, oh, that's all you got? That's all you got for me? You gotta go searching back through history to find a moment when Devin was not exceptional? That's crazy, you know? And I think for me, it really has, truthfully, since we're being vulnerable here, it's something that I struggle against. Like I'm saying, I really feel like people are very ruthless with me about the things that I do because ultimately people are going to say, well, people just have high expectations of you and all this other stuff. Yeah. But I mean, it's still the experience that I have. Like I'm not Superman, you know, and I can really count some of these experiences on like one or two hands. So to me, to have two hands worth of, failures, you know what I'm saying? Like real failures in my 20-year career, I think is kind of like, what are we saying here, you know? And I think that that's something that I have to fight against. And I've had to learn over the years that like, it's nobody's problem. I shouldn't be like taking it out on people because I'm having this experience. But there have been times when I did that for sure. Like when we were in
Yeah.
First Rock, I'm telling you, I was like probably pretty ruthless to my soldiers. I was like, bro, you guys, I'm under the thumb of the biggest scrutiny of all time. You know, you guys cannot be falling out on these runs. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't
Yeah.
do it. Like there's
Yeah.
no way. Like, I'm not going to allow it, and so it's almost like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, I think and some people can think that it's coming from pride, but sometimes it's coming from pain,
Yeah. No, that's good, dude. Like this was a much better one. I mean, it came full circle
It's the
because I
same
felt
thing
that
though.
one from you. It is, but it's not
Yeah.
because what you're saying in this one, if I could back brief you, what you're saying is, you know, um, you ultimately fear colossal failure. Like you've had these things that has happened in your past, and you failed, and it came with the scrutiny. So it's like the failure that created scrutiny. So you can say I fear the scrutiny, or you fear the failure that created scrutiny, at wherever you want to land there. But
Sure.
how that's manifesting in your leadership is you are ruthless in the arena of failure. Like, because it is especially if you are responsible for them, because it is an attack on you if they fail, and you're afraid of that, therefore you're ruthless.
Sure.
That's what I just heard.
Perhaps. Yeah.
That's
I
some
mean, I
deep
think that's
shit.
fair. It is.
Yeah.
It is. And, one of the things I always brief about is like wars over battles is a big mantra to me that I try to communicate, especially with emerging leaders, which is like, look, man, people will try to make you feel whatever about these battles. But when you study history and you understand, like, listen, in a war, there's a lot of battles and sometimes you lose, but
Yeah.
you should focus on the war, focus on the strategic outcome in total. And if you deliver that, then I just don't believe that anybody can call you a failure or like can like talk about it. It's like, bro, we won the war. At the end of the day, we won the war. That's what we were
Yeah.
after. And like, I will honor and stand up and talk about any battle. I'll tell you what went wrong. But, and so, yeah, for sure. It's like, again, Army mentorship. I don't know, people out there, they may not know. I don't care about talking about it. It's like when I was a junior at West Point, I was acting a fool and I got suspended, kicked out, however you want to look at it. And I had to go be enlisted for like a year and a half. And it was the craziest experience of all time, man. Like, oh my gosh. Like terrible, terrible, terrible. Like, oh my gosh. Like, it's just, we could do a whole episode about that some other time. But ultimately, in the end, I crawled my way back. This is what my memoir will be about ultimately, is like, yeah. So I crawled my way back to the situation, ended up going back to West Point, excelling there, blah, blah, blah. But that really, that was like one of the first times in my life that I ever had like a real failure, so this is like my one like first real battle lost. Like I had just been like flawless victory through the battles, just like crushing it. And I was like so offended during that time period in my life that people were acting like I had never won, or like I was like an actual failure. I was like, are y'all crazy? Do you know how many W's I've stacked in my life, or like how this was just a brief moment? And I think that for a long time that really stuck with me for years and years. I got over it probably, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, 8 years ago, maybe when I got out of the army. I took a year off and kind of did some woosah and some therapy and really some meditation and thought a lot about it. Um, but yeah, I mean, so I think that experience for sure, yeah, made me just feel that I had to be ruthless about success, because or not success. I hate the word success because I think it's like a word that is a little bit loosey goosey. I like to would say more like winning, or accomplishing the objective, which I guess is what success is. But yeah, man, it's just like, I'm not trying to lose. Like I can't leave it on an L. I just can't do it. So you talk about value, like I think that's what people see as part of my values. Just like, I know one thing, I bet you ain't gonna leave it on an L.
No, I mean, you're right, man.
Like
It's like
that's my reputation. I know
your
that.
ability to yeah, your ability to persevere, absolutely, it makes up your value, you know, 100%.
Yeah, like we're just
I
not gonna
agree.
take it on an
Then
L. And
you know,
so I had to maneuver to figure out how to do that, though, in like a kinder and more empathetic way, in a way that I'm not, wearing that all the time, and allowing that to really infiltrate my psyche in a way that was making me not be able to be the type of leader that I wanted to be. So, yeah, that's
yeah.
my box answer. Box answer number one, they
No, that's
got us
good,
getting
man.
vulnerable out here, dog.
Hey, man, that's actually a great question, and those who are listening, I certainly invite them to, send us their feedback and comments, or um, have this discussion with, a mentor or somebody that you trust, and understand, like, what is it inside of you, like what are you afraid of, or what do you fear, and how does that fear show up in the way you lead? And then once you figure out what that is, I think the question that follows it is, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I got a
Like,
question
what
for
are you
you.
going to
Like,
do
so
about
are you down from Superman? Are all the I am Shawn Robertson workout videos like you letting us know that you're Superman? Like, have we gotten over
it?
that? I mean,
I mean, dude, I sleep for 7 hours a night. Seven, I'm
nice. That's
getting
new.
better sleep. Right, right. So I feel bad for those that I've, developed and invested in over time. And I guess this is my apology, a public apology here. Like, I truly didn't understand, why I didn't sleep, but now it was the fear of what I just laid out. And you got to get good sleep. You got to get good
You
sleep.
got to get good sleep.
Um,
Although,
and I
sleep
was not getting
are
good
for
sleep.
those who are broke.
We said that. We
We
said
did.
that when we were
We believed
lieutenants.
it.
We were like, sleep are for those people who are broke. Man, I was sleeping like 3 to 4 hours a night on repeat. Weekends too.
Yeah, definitely.
Weekends too, man. So I mean, it's just crazy, and you absolutely do not have to do that. And I get, I said this to when I was developing cadets at West Point. I said this to them. I'm like, hey, it's frustrating when you talk to general officers because they stand on the podium and they tell you, get good sleep, spend time with your loved ones, blah, 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 blah. And they did none of that to become a
None of
general.
it. Right.
So it's like, why are you now telling me to do something that you didn't do? And most of us here want some degree of upward mobility to crush the army. We want to be battalion commanders, brigade commanders, and be competitive. And we know to be competitive, then you can't sleep and you can't spend time with your family. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Same thing in the civilian world. I mean, these partners don't sleep either. That's like, again, like, you know, I hate to keep talking about the law firms, but that's part of my experience.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like, that's what I realized too. Is like, okay, well, I don't really want to do this for 10 years to become a partner because they're on the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning too. Like, there's not like, it's not like you do all this work and then when you get to the other side, you're chilling while we're all working. Like, that's not what's happening. They're also
Right.
working, you know, and you're like, wow,
Yeah.
so now I'm just not going to sleep forever. I'm never going to see my family like ever, except for the 4 weeks I take vacation. I don't,
Yeah.
you know, and I
Yeah.
think that that's part of my growth is like not seeking such a ruthless, thankless, you know, restless path. You know, at some point you got to really be honest with yourself about what it is that you're trying to accomplish and when enough is enough. And, you know, I think that's a, you know, like almost a segue. It's another thing that I feel like is not talked about enough in the value conversation on this is like, I mean, how much you want? You know what I'm saying? Like how much
Yeah.
you want? Like, you know,
Yeah.
they glorify the super CEOs and all this other stuff, but like Elon's got like 10 wives and 18 kids and all this stuff. Like we don't ever talk about
Yeah.
that, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we don't ever talk about does anybody know what Elon's kids think about him? I don't
No.
know. Do they know him?
No.
Maybe they do,
No.
maybe they
Probably
don't. I'm
not.
not speaking on it.
Yeah.
We just don't talk about it is my point. You know, we talk about how
Right.
rich he is and
Right.
all this other stuff, but we don't talk about the, you know, the humans that are, you know, by the wayside of these type of things. And yeah, I think it takes growth and maturity. And honestly, you burn out. Like, I just don't think you could have slept for 3 hours a night for 10 more years.
Yeah. I think I could have, but you know, I'm
Yeah,
Superman.
you
No,
think
I'm
so?
just kidding.
Sheesh.
No. So, you know, you just sparked a thought in my head, man. And yeah, you just sparked a thought in my head. With what you just said. And it's that, you know, it's understanding, you know, asking yourself the question, what is my value? And then what are my values? Right. And then aligning those. And
Sure.
that's where you liquidate. So I think we're
Sure.
developing a formula here together. Like,
Yeah,
what is
definitely.
your value? What are your values? And then there has to be some overlap, and you have to adequately liquidate in those pockets. And I think
Sure.
that is happiness. That will create some level of happiness for you.
Yeah. And at least, yeah, I
That's
think
what I'm
so.
actively
I mean,
doing right now. Yeah.
yeah, it's helpful. I mean, you have to. I tell you this. I started my company when I was in law school, so I was on Shawn Robertson mode as well. From 2021 till probably 2023. So like about 3 years straight. I was building out this business and I was at Vanderbilt Law School and I did all my homework, you know? Because same thing. It's vulnerable here. I didn't like that my classmates used to make a lot of comments about how I was like doing more than law school. You know, they're like, oh, this guy, like, you know, who goes to a top 15 law school and like does something else. That's what they used to say. And so then I used to think in my head, like, you know, I would be like, I'm doing both. You know, it's not like I'm doing something else. Does that make sense? Like I'm doing both. I'm doing my homework and I'm doing this. So like I'm doing all my stuff. And then at like 1 o'clock at night, then I'm sitting here through these color palettes and all this other stuff until 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm going to bed until my 8 o'clock class, you know, like, um, and again, like looking back at it, did I need to do it that way? No, but I just couldn't like, I don't know. I just didn't like that. I just didn't like that situation. And so my fiance really helped me a ton over time, because she just was like, bro, you can't, like, you're dying. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you're not being like nice, you're not like doing whatever. You may see that you're like getting your goals, but like honestly, it's killing you. Same thing. I worked at the law firm while I was building out this business, not sleeping, doing 2 jobs that require a ton. And it wasn't fulfilling, because it's like, who am I doing all this for? Like an idea set so I can feel, but at the time I was like, I did feel kind of like a Superman kind of guy. Like I could do it all, I'm doing both, but the truth is, looking back at it, I could have done either one of them better without the other, you know?
You said you
So
could have
I
or
could
could not
have,
have.
yeah, I could have done either one of them better if I would have just focused on doing them one at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm doing a great 70% balancing act. And I think that's another thing that we have to think about too when we talk about that. It's like, and what I was saying earlier, like as I move into having a family, I don't really want to be 70% for my family. I want to be able to
Yeah.
show up more than that. And so trying to align my priorities to allow myself to be there and be present. And yeah, but I think for the younger folks, I think it's difficult because there's so much ego and accomplishment these days, and you get addicted to the success hamster wheel, and you just are running a 5 minute
it.
mile on that thing, man. I remember it. Like I
And you
just
don't know
had to, like my spirit couldn't take it
you don't know
if I
why.
didn't do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was on
You don't know
fire
why.
about it. Like could not. And yeah, like you're just like, "Ugh, I have to. I have to."
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
part of like where we're bred. Like, we learned it in Italy, we learned it at West Point, we learned it, and in these things. And so it's always to ask yourself, how do you find balance? What does balance mean to you? Maybe that'll be my journaling this week, is like, what does balance really mean to me?
Yeah.
What is that? You see a lot of Instagram videos that are like, I think Obama said, hey, like, listen, there ain't no work-life balance if you're trying to be lit. All right, bro. You get it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, bro. I'm sure that's how you got here. Like, but anyways. Um, so I think that's
I mean,
a
it's
good
tough.
question.
It's absolutely tough. And we'll close out here shortly. But I mean, I just, you know, you think about just doing the thing over and over and over again. Um, and that I didn't wake up. There are two things that woke me up from a getting off the hamster wheel thing, and I'm not totally off the hamster wheel, but
Sure. We
I'm
never
moving in
are.
the direct, but I'm changing the pace at which I'm going to move on this hamster wheel. Um, but two things like made me question the pace that I was moving at, and it's my wife and then my youngest kid. So, Jordan asked me one day, she's like, "What time do you want to wake up? What time do you want to go to sleep? How much time do you want to spend with your kids? How much time do you want to spend with me?" you know, and it's questions that I ain't think about ever. What do you at? What time do I want to wake up? Well, shit. Yeah, I've been waking up at 4 because my profession demands me to do that in order for me to be on this hamster wheel. And what are you talking about? What time I want to go to sleep? I go to sleep when the mission's done. And spending time, you, I mean, I'm always traveling, right? Or I'm always doing something, or I'm always training. So that made me stop and really reflect and think. Like, I got to answer these questions for myself and see if this is a good fit for me. And then the second thing that really inspired me to take a pause was, I was constantly in and out of the house doing different things, organizationally. And Zachariah, my youngest, asked me, he's like, Daddy, why do you always have to go? Right? And that question is like, why do you always have to go?
Wow. Man,
Made
that's
me
deep.
think, like, how do you like, I don't know. Because the only way you can respond to that is daddy has to work, or daddy has to do this, or daddy has to do this. But it's like, why do you always have to go? So, when you don't have a vote, is essentially what I'm saying to my kid. Like, daddy doesn't have a vote. I got to go do this thing. Um, but
Yeah.
but then I ask myself, well, at what point do you get a vote? At what point do you get a vote? So anyway, yeah, I say that to leave it for, people to think about, deeply, like what
Well,
time, these are important things to think about.
I've got to close it out because the kids said we need to talk more anyway. So, my thing is I'll give you two of mine, in the same way. One of it is that I talk to people about business all the time. And, I'm a real outcome-based guy. That's how I try to stay, like, I don't know, in the lines, if you will. It gets me a little bit easier because things can get really ethereal. And here's one. I'm always like, well, how much money you want to make? And people are like, as much money as possible. And I'm like, is that really true? Is that really true? Because I can show you how to make a lot of money, right? But like, I don't know that you want to do what is required to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could show you, but I don't know that you really want to do that. So let's reframe the understanding, just like we've been talking about value and liquidation and all this, right? Because this idea is I want to make as much as possible. When you start to think about it like really deeply, it essentially puts you in like, just like, what, like, I mean, if that's what you're saying, then I mean, whoa, like you're a slave to it then at that point. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's no answer. There's no amount. When you make this much money, you're gonna want more money. And you want to make this much money, you want more money. If you want to make this much money, you want more money. So like then now you're really on the hamster wheel like a treadmill. It's just rolling. It doesn't matter. Whatever the ticker says, you're gonna keep rolling. You're gonna keep rolling. You're gonna keep rolling. And at some point, the ticker's gonna stop moving, and then you're gonna start trying to run faster to make it go up more, but it's not going to. And so I think that's one of the things I thought a lot about, of just like trying to take myself out of this like never ending pursuit of whatever that is. And the second thing is that I used to, for a long time, not want to have a family because I felt like I still got stuff that I'm trying to do for myself. And, you know, I almost like, I don't want to do that if I don't feel like I'm fulfilled in my life, because I think I'm still going to want to chase this and that. And that's where I had to start giving myself like some more concrete things to fill that in, right? It's like, so you just want to just forever just be sitting here trying to like stack wins or stack money or stack what exactly? It just never ends. You just want to do this for 50 more years that you just don't even know if anything will ever make you feel like you've gotten to a place where you can sit down. And I challenge people that a bunch to try not to have these kind of open-ended desires or goals, because what happens is you end up just, there's no answer.
Yeah.
There's no answer. And so you're chasing something that can't be caught. And so that would be my takeaways.
Chasing
It's
the
like,
wind,
don't
baby.
chasing the wind, hunting a ghost. Don't hunt a ghost, at least make it real so that you can at some point, put it on the mantle. And so in some ways, I'm hunting for my last kind of big buck to put on the mantle, and we can kind of transition, but still you have to give yourself those deadlines and kind of clear desires. And I always tell people that I think it's not hard to get what you want if you don't want that much. And that seems to be like really a sage comment. People are like, what do you mean? I mean, when I said it's not hard to get what you want when you don't want that much. If you can just be very honest and very clear about the objective that you're after and be okay with having it when you get it, super accomplishable. Super.
Dude, I love it. I love it. Devin, this was a good one, man. I love unpacking this with you. Love the box idea. Box idea
Love
was
it.
good.
Yeah,
Yep.
box
I
was
think we'll
good.
sustain. Can't wait to have a guest and hit him with one of these.
Yo, I had to hit, I had to sit crisscross applesauce to answer this question. I thought we was, we in elementary school. Like, yo, we getting real vulnerable here. What do I fear about? Dang.
Yeah, no. It's good, man. It's good. Anyway. All right, man. Well, hey, like all episodes, this was a good one. We tend to get better at this thing, man. I love it. I love watching the evolution.
It's good. Yeah, you get more comfortable just like being real.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, that's the situation. What jersey are you wearing, by the way? Is that a Columbia jersey?
No, man. This is India Deuce, baby. Best company in the core, baby.
Okay.
You already know it.